I am going to get a lot of hate for this video. Good. I worked in customer service for over a decade. There is literally nothing you can say to me that I haven't already heard 100 times before. And the thing is, I don't want to talk about the WWE. I'd rather be talking about literally anything else right now. But as CM Punk once said when he wagered it all back in Vegas all those years ago, I've got a lot I need to get off my chest. As of this recording, WrestleMania 41 will have come and gone. The pageantry, the spectacle, the showcase of the immortals, as Michael Cole would say, as disgruntled promoter and sex pest Vincent Kennedy McMahon would mouth into his ear back in Gorilla, will be tantalizing for so many of the loyal WWE universe. I aim to investigate one question in this video, and it is this. Is WWE better without Vince McMahon? That is like asking if one piece of shit is better than two pieces of shit. I mean, it's easier and more convenient to clean up, less resistance, but a piece of shit will always still be a piece of shit. Look, there are people I know, friends, who are blindly loyal to the WWE product. Maybe they're aware that deep down Paul Triple H Levesque is the same demon, but with a more tolerant face. Who knows if they're aware of his blackface mocking The Rock during the Attitude Era. Maybe they're aware of how in the lead up to WrestleMania 19, Triple H repeatedly stated on television that someone like Booker T, a thug, could never be world championship material. Any reasonable person watching those promos would probably sit there and think, there's no way they're not going to give Booker T the championship at WrestleMania. Booker is going to get his comeuppance and then some. Typical babyface booking, right? But not only was that not what happened, but Triple H pinned Booker 1, 2, 3 in the middle of the ring 24 seconds after hitting his finishing move, the pedigree. And this is well into the era when in every championship match, especially at WrestleMania, wrestlers were kicking out of each other's finishing moves sometimes 3-4 times in a match. And you can make the argument that there hasn't been a black performer in a main event under his watch in, I can't even remember when. His Christian buddy in NXT is making more of an effort to push black talent, and perhaps the saddest part of all this is that Booker T helps contribute to the propaganda machine as much as anyone else in the company in 2025. But even if you give him all the benefits of the doubt, you can't take back the massive bomb Paul Levesque made in pre-WrestleMania 41 hype interviews, in which he officially goes on record and confirms everything we already knew, that he supports Donald Trump. And to throw more salt into the wound, WWE is having their first WrestleMania weekend roast, and guess who happens to be their roaster? Tony Hinchcliffe, the insult hack comedian who said at a Trump rally that Puerto Rico was a pile of trash. Oh wait, that's just a joke. These are just jokes, folks. I wish I could say the reason I stopped watching WWE was my politics, but I'd be lying if that were the case. The reason I stopped watching wrestling was twofold. One, Vince McMahon had successfully bought out and dismantled the territory system in the 1980s, except for one territory that was financed by cable television that forced Vince McMahon to pivot and actually create something interesting via the Attitude Era. And two, he made his newly minted and incredibly banal son-in-law the top star, to really secure that monopolization had occurred. Triple H was routinely on television, cutting the same eye-wateringly bland promo. Seriously, have you ever been so bored that you began yawning to the point that your eyes began to water? Yes, Triple H's promos literally bored me to tears. And then the matches, his sometimes northward of 40-minute heatless epics that had about as much noise and emotional investment as a Catholic church on a Sunday. But don't get me started on WWE and the Catholic Church, or I might have to tell you about the company's first, but not last, scuffle with sexual misconduct. The sexual misconduct on display in the early 90s? Horny men diddling 13-year-old ring boys. Unfortunately, wrestling wasn't taken seriously in the early 90s, so major publications refused to cover it. I wasn't aware of any of this in the early 2000s. All I knew was that I respected myself enough to tune out before Triple H's reign of terror brain-rotted me into oblivion. But goddammit, there was one man who brought me back, and I'll never forgive him for it. There is perhaps no pro wrestler I feel more infuriatingly indifferent towards as a performer than Seth freaking Rollins. Yes, the man literally calls himself that, Seth freaking. It used to be Triple H, but the game's handpicked chosen one is somehow even more unlikable to me, lacking Riz in pretty much every sense. The guy's freakishly athletic, I'll give him that, but bro doesn't know who he is as a performer, and he never will, just like his daddy. But boy, do people love chanting his metalcore song like they're at an Arsenal match. Seriously, did an ad man at Netflix see a clip of Seth Rollins taking 5 minutes to get to the ring just so a propaganda-pilled audience could endlessly chant his generic song and think to himself, gee, if only we could get Netflix for 3 hours. But make no mistake, I have absolutely zero desire to see this man get his ass kicked in a ring. Wrestling isn't real. I learned that lesson with AEW's Chris Jericho. Despite having a very punchable face, Seth Rollins inspires exactly less than 1 iota of emotional investment from me, maybe because I've been subjected to the same postmodern mishmash of Randy Savage, some half-forgotten Marvel villain, and the nanny's Fran Drescher now for over 10 years. The Shield was great and all, but the Shield broke up in 2014. Roman Reigns turned out to be far and away the best of the bunch, so think about that before you sit there shielded behind your keyboards as you reactively explain to me in several paragraphs I will never read, with timestamps, how much of an AEW shill I am. I find Jonathan Moxley almost as exhausting at this point as Seth Rollins, which is quite impressive. Wait, what? Oh, this just in. Ding, 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 ding. Breaking news alert. Roman Reigns has also come out of the closet as a confirmed Trump supporter. He even copy-pasted his boss's sentiments about how he's done so much for entertainment. Imagine modeling your thoughts on a guy who already thinks like artificial intelligence. Hell, his mother-in-law thinks so much like AI that she calls it A1. So yeah, Roman Reigns, but I still think he's the best of all 3 Shield members. He endured a lot of shit to get to the top. And do we even need confirmation from Seth Rollins at this point? The revolutionary architect has to be a Trump supporter, right? This man will earnestly shoot about how he created a revolution while taking money from a billionaire who is an alleged sex pest, a creative hack, and a confirmed fascist, which, I don't know, those are like the 3 things most counterintuitive to a revolution. But Seth Rollins points out in brilliantly unaware fashion how much he represents the bougie hetero bro who identifies as a revolutionary Chad but has no interest in any real structural or societal change. That's his gimmick. I just figured it out. Doesn't make him any more interesting, though. Whoa. The man tours across the world, I'll give him that, but do not sit here and tell me he possesses any authentic love for the art of the promo or a wrestling match that doesn't devolve into the samey, flippy dippy hackery. Again, not an AEW shill. I sound like Jim Cornette at this point. Seth Rollins is Triple H's platonic ideal of a super indie worker with a CrossFit physique and the charisma of a Triple H, meaning none. But the WWE Universe doesn't know what they want because the company they're loyal to does all the thinking for them. But Seth freaking ain't the guy that got me back into pro wrestling. It was this man, CM Punk. Chicago-made Phil Brooks. In 2011, he changed my life and many others when he put Vince McMahon's stoogery on blast on live television and became the hottest thing the company had in years. Then he left in 2014, only to return to pro wrestling in 2021 for new upstart promotion at the time, AEW, in one of the most surreal and emotional moments in wrestling history, only to leave that company in 2023, getting fired for starting a scuffle backstage and for burying the company various times. And then returning to WWE with his tail between his legs like a little bitch. Yeah, I've got a lot to say about CM Punk, maybe like 2 hours worth in an upcoming video essay I will probably be too terrified to ever release. There are 2 main events at WrestleMania 41. Saturday's main event is a triple threat match between Seth Rollins, CM Punk, and Roman Reigns, in which Paul Heyman will almost certainly turn on Punk and align himself with Seth Rollins, ensuring I will never watch WWE again, thank God. After I got over the hypocrisy of CM Punk's WWE return, I decided to give it a shot. While a lot of his promo work has been stilted and compromised, sounding a hell of a lot less authentic than his time in AEW, he still came across as one of the very few in the company who sounded like a actual human being, something Triple H isn't a fan of, but hey, they're best buds now, so it is what it is. Punk was injured in 2024, meaning we were cheated out of a match with him, but we were finally going to get one in 2025. He'd been feuding with Rollins since January, so I thought, alright, great, get the bad Punk opponent out of the way now so we can have something worth watching at Mania. But fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 1,000 times, and I'm a loyal member of the WWE Universe. So what are we getting at WrestleMania 41? Honestly, this match could have been just Punk and Roman. Like, we already have other beef from Punk's return in 2021 when Reigns mentioned on a podcast that Punk wasn't a needle mover. That's all you need, really. You got the Heyman connection, you're golden. The night after Elimination Chamber, when this guy turned heel after 100 years too late, Punk opened Raw on Netflix and cut a 7 out of 10, 9.5 by WWE standards promo on those bald stooges John Cena and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Good stuff, but then he mentioned Seth Rollins, and my eyes immediately started to glaze over. I was transported back to 2002, reliving mediocre memories on my 13-inch CRT television in my bedroom, watching Eric Bischoff hand Triple H the World Heavyweight Championship, and changing the channel after 10 minutes of Hunter cutting another unremarkable snooze fest promo about heteronormativity or being the best or whatever boring-ass grind set mentality he's still on about today. On the go-home Raw, Punk and Roman finally come to blows, only for Seth freaking to ambush them from behind with a steel chair that Michael Cole calls the Shield chair. Because, do you get it? It's just like when Seth Rollins did to the Shield all the way back in 2014. WWE don't have to even tell stories anymore. All they have to do is reference their past by reheating an already overrated angle. Remember when is the lowest form of conversation, and that's how propaganda works, folks. To the WWE universe, don't get mad at me. Or as Booker T used to say, don't hate the player, hate the game. And who became the game? I'm not the one calling you dumb. They are the ones calling you dumb because they think you know what you want, so they supply what they like and package it to you like an advertiser. Honestly, I'd be perfectly fine with all wrestling stopping right now. Well, except for Soft Ground, that shit is legit. The rest of it can go f*** off for all I care. With the exception of maybe, I don't know, Eddie Kingston AEW title run or Mariah May continuing to be Mariah May and Toni Storm continuing to be timeless. Why did that feud have to end now? Oh, wait. Is it because Mariah May's going to WWE? Okay, Soft Ground Wrestling, the only promotion that needs to exist now. The rest can go. Am I a hater? Sure. A contrarian? Absolutely. But I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear. I'm perfectly okay with this video getting downvoted to hell or for it to be buried in obscurity in the YouTube algorithm. Here's the thing, I do not care about the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes. At least not this iteration of him. I do have complicated feelings about Cody Rhodes. I appreciate what he had to endure in his initial WWE run when the company would never have considered him a top guy. Of course, all anyone likes to talk about with this era of Cody was the infamously queer-coded Stardust gimmick, which was a reference to his half-brother Dustin's time spent as Goldust for wrestling for the Fed's mid-card, starting all the way back in the mid-90s. He was a wrestler designed to get a reaction out of the gay panic vibes of the 90s American conservative. And we've seen how much has changed since then. And boy, did Dustin get reactions. Stardust was an ironic character. I liked Stardust because he reminded me of what I enjoyed about wrestling more than anything else. The weirdo outcast who isn't looking to become the best or to cement his legacy. He was just some dude who didn't fit in, but he got up and went to work anyways. To me, this is far more relatable than anything going on with whatever this version of Cody Rhodes is. No longer an outsider, Cody is now the corporate champion, universally beloved by the WWE Universe, well, except for those ironic Cena fans who used to chant Cena sucks, but didn't even realize, and still don't, that their taste is part of the problem. Moments after finishing his story at WrestleMania 40, the boyhood dream became reality, wherein he manifests the reality that wasn't ever supposed to happen, which was Dusty Rhodes as WWE champion. This freak, whose name belonged to a fat working-class white man from the South who genuinely believed he was black, was going to repackage himself by leaving the company who had humiliated his father, his half-brother, and himself. He'd make a new name on the indies, not as dashing Cody Rhodes, nor as Stardust, but simply Cody. He dropped the working-class royalty entirely. He worked his ass off, becoming one of the most respected wrestlers on the planet, worked across the globe in New Japan, performed at shows with less than 1,000 people, helped create a legitimate alternative to WWE, something that hadn't been done on this scale since Vince purchased WCW, back in 2001. Along with youth pastors Nick and Matt Jackson and Kenny Omega, these 4 men were fortunate enough to have met a son of a billionaire who happened to be the hardest of hardcore internet wrestling fans. Not 2 years into the company, the promotion that came to be known as All Elite Wrestling, terrible name, put Paul Levesque into such stress that he suffered a cardiac event that couldn't have been timed more perfectly, just a few short days after CM Punk's AEW debut. You see, the reason Punk left WWE in 2014 was because of Sir Paul. Well, it was about a lot of things, but mainly he didn't like Triple H. Didn't care much for Vince either, and he has made his opinion loud and vocal about that, now that it's safe to do so, thanks to Netflix. The moment that really pissed me off was the promo standoff between Cena and Rhodes, in which the latter mentions "he who shall not be mentioned." The American Nightmare, trademark Malcolm X, claims he was chosen by the people, like any well-functioning democracy, while John Boy was handpicked by the fascist sex pest. And yeah, we know Johnny was seen with his good bud after the allegations and did the obvious simp thing of defending him. Seriously, what is up with pro wrestlers and defending this guy like he's some irreplaceable daddy figure for them? Dude just emotionally abused you and manipulated you, but hey, he paid you a ton of money in the process, so that makes all the bad thoughts go away, right? For how tough wrestlers are, some of them can be real impotent and dickless bitches. It's the arrogance for me. Cena flaunting his relationship with Vince in public, Cody referencing it to get a reaction out of the crowd, Triple H after Royal Rumble 2024 being asked what he thought about his father's trafficking, and answering by literally saying that it didn't matter because he likes to focus on the positives, like making a ton of money that weekend. Because under capitalism, that is all that matters. Even some of the most left-leaning wrestlers came out in support of him, most infamously Bryan Danielson and Mick Foley, but these are the same people who thought this guy was one of the smartest guys in the locker room. Funny how WWE only treated Cody like a big deal after he became a big deal in AEW. He had raw talent, a knack to be an earnest babyface who I used to think was full of shit, but now I know he sincerely believes the bullshit he says. And WWE and Netflix is a match made in capitalist neoliberal heaven because, honestly, who else would have the audacity to put out the Common People episode of Black Mirror on the same streaming service that was initially responsible for this dystopian nightmare of advertising versus content dialectic that we're all currently experiencing? Have you seen that Vince McMahon documentary? Also, both companies can wash their hands of the out-of-touch sex pest and let the people know that the evil is gone.
The evil is gone.
Paul Stephanie and their boy DT will sure to be entertain us with their banality and advertising for years, no, decades to come. He's entertaining. He draws heat. It's almost as if pro wrestling and politics are the same thing. All these interviews throwing up softball questions, even Bill Simmons when he's interviewing Nick Khan, not once mentioning the sex trafficking allegations. I'm disappointed in you, William. Well, I guess that doesn't exactly move tickets come WrestleMania week, right? Great job with the journalism. Simping. Oh, God, I think I got something wedged in my throat. You wash it down with this Coke Zero because I'm an ethical consumer because Coke is, real ethical and all. But there's one moment that really struck with me between Cena and Rhodes. It wasn't anything in their recent promo battles. It was a clip back in 2023 as Cena introduced a new at the time American Nightmare to the WWE universe. While I dislike WWE with a burning passion not unlike gonorrhea, I am grateful that their YouTube channel condensed the entire Cena-Rhodes rivalry into a bearable half-hour video. Seriously, nearly half the running time of these two on the mic was entrances with crowds performatively booing Cena and unironically cheering their hero with the imperialist neck tattoo. It is the one clip I'll show because God knows I'm not even going to bother to play WWE's copyright game. But this clip says everything you need to know. The heteronormativity is palpable here. One, a grown man-child dressing like nostalgia vomited all over good taste. The other decked out in a corporate business suit like he always is. The two men embrace like every sus male encounter I've ever seen, staring each other in the eye, arm extended for the most masculine of handshakes. The handshake evolves into a hug as the two mumble sweet nothings into each other's ear that WWE shills will pretend holds some mystified secret we'd all kill to hear, when in reality it's just two successful capitalists dick riding each other. Wrestling's a funny thing, ain't it? It's a weird thing to be compelled by. It has been an overwhelmingly Republican-coded form of entertainment for so long now. The neoliberal Reagan/Thatcher Hulkamania of the 80s with all of its rugged individualism, the vehemently anti-feminist attitude era of the 90s, the aggressively violent, ruthless aggression 2000s, that climaxed with the horrific events of Chris Benoit and what he did to his family. Again, I reiterate though, politics is not the reason I stopped caring about WWE. Good taste is why I stopped caring about the WWE. Is that a pretentiously arrogant thing to say? Maybe. But we live in a time where people wear their anti-intellectualism on their sleeves like a badge of honor. I've heard people say it's a bad time to live with alternative takes, and I believe that's true for every generation. If you have a take that runs counter to the herd, you're gonna get hate. But even if that alternative take begins to take off, it becomes yet another thing for advertising to glom onto. I am not unaware of that, and I am definitely not alone. There is nothing original about this hot take I'm giving you right now. I formed this take based on the small number of people who actually care about good taste and pro wrestling, and no, I'm not sitting here and telling you that consuming the right type of media is going to lead to a better world, but I will tell you that if you keep wasting time watching the same expecting different results, it is unfortunately on you to change your habits. I get it. We're all overworked and overcooked. We're all tired. And we look forward to our favorites getting to look good for us. And we're willing to sift through a lot of bullshit in order to get there. Believe me, I know, because I've watched every WrestleMania. And I've watched a lot of PG era WWE. I'm not against Rhea Ripley or Jey Uso or Jade Cargill. I mean, hell, Jade was actually getting good when she left AEW because she had something to prove. Only for her now to be doing the same dominant millennial girl boss bullshit until when exactly? When is that going to run out? If you're in the WWE, the safe bet is on never. Then, now, forever, together. Thanks for watching.